Okay, so good morning, everybody, and I think we're welcoming you to our third Infographics User Network meeting, aren't we? So I'm going to hand over to Carl to carry out today's sessions, but it's fantastic that we've got people joining us today, and we are obviously recording the session so that we can make that available on the forum for those network members that haven't been able to make this morning's session. So we've got Becky joining us to share her work that she's undertaken to enthuse and invigorate us all, I think, isn't it? To actually dip our toe in and start having a go at using some infographics. And it's always fantastic to see how other people are using it in other organisations. So I'll hand over to you now, Carl, if that's okay, to start the session.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. So this is our third session where we are promoting as a network the use of infographics to promote clinical audit and share your key results from your improvement programs. So my name's Carl Walker. I'm the former NQI CAN chair and also the Leicester University Hospitals Leicester Clinical Audit Manager. And as part of the session today, I'm just going to do a recap of the key messages from the first two sessions and then apply that a little bit in terms of clinical audit infographics. As Vicky's already said, we've then got Becky sharing her it was a newsletter comms piece of work that she did during Clinical Audit Awareness Week last year. And then we've got some training on how to design a clutter-free infographic, which is quite key, with some examples to critique at the end. So on we go. So what is an infographic? So infographics are basically a way of visualizing messages in a key and organized manner. And I like image that I saw on Twitter once, where basically there's lots and lots of data. As analysts, we sort it, we arrange it, and then we decide on how best to present that back as part of our projects to the project team and wider audiences. And then after that, you then try and identify what's the story you're going to tell, how are you going to organise that data in a way that it's meaningful for people that are your audience. And I think that's a really good example of how we can do that to data and items. So in terms of infographics, what are they? Well, and why do we use them? Well, there's lots of literature on the use of infographics and how effective they are, but ultimately what the evidence tells us is that visually communicating is a lot more effective than just written formats and written context. And again, this stat here, 90% of information transmitted to the brain is visual. So that's really important, so that we mix up our infographics and however we use them. And we can use infographics in lot of almost in every way that we use data and reports, really. PowerPoint presentations are infographics, reports are infographics potentially, and what we're sending out in terms of on social media and the like, and that's getting key messages out and sending out information on your intranet. That's all use of infographics, and it's trying to get people's attention. And again, nice stat here, 40% of people respond better to visual information than text. So ultimately, when you're trying to share your clinical audit information, you want people to take notes and you want people to respond to the information that you're trying to share. And again, this is another good statistic that people remember. Images long-term, text is only short-term memory. So again, really good sort of reasoning to why we should use infographics. There's further information for you there about the importance of them, but we've covered that on the previous sessions, which are all available to view on the NQI CAN forum. And the fundamentals of an infographic really there's three elements to it, and again, we've gone into detail into this previously, but ultimately an infographic should have the visual, which is all about the colors, the coding, the graphics, and the icons that you use. The content that you want to use in terms of what are the data that you want to share, what period is this for, how is that referenced, and then again, what knowledge have we gleaned from our work, what do we want to share in terms of the facts, and what do we want people to take away from what we've done. There's lots of infographic products available, and again, as an NQICAN network, we don't promote any individual software other than just saying there are lots available, and there's a lot that are free to use. And some of the examples that we shared over recent of the previous meetings are a range of these different options that you can see on the screen. And in my session previously, I was trying to say about don't think that we're all experts in numbers. I read a book called Making Numbers Count, and that clever scientist who wrote the book was actually saying that nobody's an expert in number, and the brain can only count up to 5, and then after that it's only lots. And actually, I put the picture up here in terms of counting sheep. You can actually see on the first one that straight away you can see that's 4, but on the second one where there's 8, you actually can't count. You can't see it and say it. You actually got to count them before you actually answer that. So, and that's a sort of a rule that we've got to remember, is that anything beyond 5 is what we call numbing, and it's hard for the brain to process. So we try and make it as simple as possible for people to understand. And another thing I gleaned from that book was actually how we translate dry statistics and make them into a bit more interesting statistics. So the book gave an example of a 330 milliliter serving of cranberry and apple juice had 44 grams of sugar in it. So that's all well and good. That probably doesn't mean a lot to many of us, apart from if we've been dieting. But the way the book translated that into an actually meaningful is actually saying drinking a can of that juice is the equivalent of eating 3 sugared donuts and 4 sugar cubes, which certainly makes you sit up and notice to think, blimey, there's a lot of sugar in that drink, isn't there? And then my spin on it is actually then you bring in an infographic, so actually you can actually show that can of pop is equal to 3 glazed donuts and 4 sugar cubes, and again then the take home. Then you remember that much more likely than just seeing the dry statistic that we started with. So it's all about turning that in translating it. So again, in terms of a clinical audit example, the dry statistic might be 1,800 out of 2,000 patients that we audited received treatment in line with NICE guidance, which was therefore 90% compliance with the standard. So the positive spin on that would be 9 out of 10 female patients receiving best practice care, and that identifies a success, and we're happy with that result and we want to share it, etc. But on the flip side of that, there's actually still 1 in 10 patients not receiving the right care. So actually, we could do our infographic with, the improvement required focus to say 1 out of 10 patients are still not receiving the correct care when they were treated. So again, I've just genericized that just to actually not get bogged down in the clinical content, but actually we're all, if we're analysing data for improvement data, we'll have compliance data that we're looking at against a standard. And again, that is 2 ways of looking at it. From a patient's point of view, you don't want to be that 1 in 10 that doesn't get the correct care, don't you? So it's actually a lot of the time in clinical audit, we try and focus on the improvement, getting 100% compliance so that everybody gets the best practice care. In terms of the previous case studies, we've now got quite a few being built up. So we've got all of these organisations that are shared with us. And as I've already said, those recordings are on NQICAN forum, and you can see the slides and the videos. And as I've said, we're recording today's video. So this is where I now close my slides down and introduce our key speaker for today, which is, share, stop sharing, there we go. Stop sharing. Okay, so yeah, so Becky Newton's with us here today, as I've said, and I know Becky's got a couple of slides to introduce her organisation and her project, so I'll hand it over to Becky for the next section.
Thank you. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction, Carl. So I'm Becky Newton. I'm the Clinical Effectiveness Facilitator at Oxley's NHS Foundation Trust. And I feel very privileged to become talking here about some newsletters I created for the Clinical Audit Awareness Week. So what I'm just going to do is just sort of give you a bit of an overview of what I did and why I did it, and just sort of show them again and just go through that. So when I click the right button. So just to give you a bit of background about Oxley's, we are a mental health and community trust, and we cover the London boroughs, but we also provide healthcare for prisons in the southwest, and we've recently extended, as of December last year, this to the southeast, and we've just extended to the southwest. So you've got my sort of little map there that just shows our geographic region. So it's quite wide. We've got over 120 sites we look after. And I am of a 1.4 whole-time equivalent audit team, and we support approximately 4,000 staff. That number's increasing as our sites grow. So what we decided to do, we wanted to make the use of Clinical Audit Awareness Week to raise the profile in our trust. So a similar story with many other trusts, we found that QI had suddenly taken a lead role and audit had taken a bit of a back seat. And up until the point of Clinical Audit Awareness Week, my manager and I have been in post about a year. And so we'd spent trying to get audit back up, we'd set up some training. So we wanted to just sort of focus on re-establishing that. And so because we're a small team, we had to work out the best way to get these messages across. So we decided to use newsletters. This is something we use quite a lot on our trust, so it's quite a familiar template. We had a global email account so we could get the message across to everyone. So it just made the managing of it easier. So really easy to send widely. We made them so they were easy to print, so people could put them up if they wanted to. And as I say, it supported our capacity because we're quite a small team, and so we just wanted to get the message out there. Our content, we decided to focus, as I said, on the audit basics. We're really trying to drum home clinical audit and the process. We decided every day of the week to look at a different part of the audit cycle, because we wanted to make it sort of approachable and say to people, look, this is how you do it, and it's not too hard. So just sort of drip feeding it in. And we also took the opportunity to highlight all the external events of the week. So there were lots that NQICAN were running. There were some that Clinical Audit Support Centre were running. So we took the opportunity to put those on there and just sort of show the wide network of audit. So to create these, I decided to use Canva. Having attended a previous session of here and I heard about Canva, that was my use. I did start with using Publisher because I had some experience using Publisher and we had access to it with the trust. I was struggling to sort of get it to look how I wanted. So I thought I'd have a look at Canva, and this was free. I haven't had any money for this, so we had to use the free version. But there's a lot there, and I'm not necessarily, as I say, I'm not sort of plugging Canva particularly, but this is just so you know this is what we used. So what I found on Canva, there were pre-made templates. So this particular layout was one I liked the look of. It was really easy to adapt. It can be a bit fiddly at first, but once I figured out how to make the adjustments and do the sort of minor tweaks, it wasn't too bad to use. Lots of art and picture options. They had lots of free choices you could use. You could also add your own, which was really good. One of the features I really liked about it is we've got distinct colours, which despite my pink background, which is our team's colour, the Oxley's colour are yellow and blue. And when I put the logo on, it picked out those colours with the text. So it was nice. So I could really make it that it was an Oxley's thing and have that tie-in. So that was good. And there were just lots of ways to save it as well. So you could save it as a picture, a PDF. If you paid for it, there were some other options too that you could save it. So there were just lots of options to make it suitable. So I had a PDF that was attached to the email we sent out, but I also downloaded it as a picture to then embed in the email. So it had a really good sort of dual purpose there. So for the themes and designs, I sort of some basic things that I'm sort of aware of with designing, and again, some things I picked up from previous sessions here. So one of the key things I wanted to do is I wanted to make the content relatable to the everyday. I didn't want audit to be this sort of scary thing, technical language or anything like that. So it was trying to make it so anyone could read it and understand the principle, whether you work in a clinical setting or not. Really wanted it to be bright and engaging and eye-catching, because again, we're trying to re-establish audit and sort of put it back on the map. And I didn't want reams and reams of text, because that turns me off when I see that. So I wanted to try and keep it light. So I decided to use food. I was inspired by this photo that I took in my supermarket of these two different sized lemons. And it got me thinking about standards, because I'm constantly thinking about audits and standards. And I thought that was a nice sort of link in. And from there, I just decided to keep it food-based throughout where I could. Sometimes it was a really tenable link, so I had to sort of switch it up. But so that's what I decided to do. So the background of the newsletter here, you can see they had a really lovely lemon background on Canva. So it looked really nice, really bright. And I also tried to make sure that the layout was consistent throughout. So you were familiar with it, you knew what to expect and where to look for information. So we sort of had this colloquial bit here where you're going, what does a standard mean? Make it relatable to every day. And then a bit more of the technical, this is how you do it, this is how you plan, and these are the sections to it. So lessons learned, this is a mixture of sort of good things I took away from this and some things I could have picked up on. So these were really great for Twitter. Had it not been putting these on Twitter, I wouldn't be here now speaking to you. So these are great ways to convey messages, and I really highlight sort of doing something like this if you're trying to sort of promote an event or promote some work you're doing. Use this as a format, or use an infographic format and put it on Twitter, because it gets a lot of attention. I had a bit of a mixture about sort of the type of background we used, I think, and I'll show you some of these in a minute, but some were a bit better than others. So the example here is my lemon one's the favourite one, because I think it's really clear and it's got that link in. This one, I don't think it's so clear about sustaining improvement. I think there are different, it's hard, obviously, you're trying to make a sort of everyday link, but I think I could have used a different type of graphic behind that would have made that a bit clearer. It's really key with this as well to think about how you're going to measure the internal effectiveness and what comms channels you've got. Like I say, we're a small team, we're quite a big trust. It was quite hard to sort of get comms engaged at the time. Things have changed since our team's gotten a bit bigger, so doing this now would be a lot easier. But we didn't have a way of measuring how well this was being spread within the trust. Externally, we knew we were doing really well because of the feedback we were getting on Twitter. But internally, I don't really know what the engagement was, other than we had a couple of people go, oh, can I join your training? So we obviously had some success, but more widely, it would have been good to see that. So think about that. Think about how you communicate it as well. You know, is email the most effective thing for us? It's what we had to do because of our resources. But are there better ways to get the messages out there? Make sure when you're planning, you consider your context and aim. We were very clear about what we wanted to do, and I think we communicated that quite well with these newsletters. We thought a sort of part of the comms aspect of it would be how you promote the material. Start doing it before. If you're going to certain meetings where you think this would be relevant, highlight that this is going out so people keep an eye on it, so they're sort of not surprised and maybe more likely to share it more widely. I think if we'd done, again, resources and timing, if we had a bit more of that, we could have sort of made the message more effective internally. I emphasise make use of the comms team. I think really make yourself a nuisance with them, because again, comms are very busy, but just keep going at them and get them to support you with this, because they know how to get the message out there. Include your logo if you're doing anything, particularly if it's for your trust. I think on our first one, I didn't manage to do that, but the rest of them, I made sure the logo was there. And just engage your team more widely. So, you know, as I say, we're a small team, but we fit part of the wider quality team. We were going through a lot of restructuring, so it was sort of quite an unsettled period. But now I know we could spread that message much more widely. So just think about who you can talk to and get that message out there. And then these were are examples of the ones we sent out. So you've seen the lemon one, the sweet one. So again, I sort of tried to make it every day. Some of these, I think I was clutching at straws a bit, but it was trying to sort of something that someone would engage with. You know, I'm very attracted to food items, so I think that's, you know, a good way to get, and I think most people are, to sort of get the message across and get people interested. And then these ones where I think the backgrounds could have been a bit better. If I'd maybe paid for the Canva, I could have had a few more options with backgrounds. So it's something to consider, and if you've got that. But I think I've run through that very quickly, but I think that's sort of all I've got to say. If anyone's got any questions, happy to answer them. But yeah, thank you for having me, and I hope you found this useful.
Thank you, Becky. That was very good. Excellent. And again, I shouldn't say short and sweet, but following the brief, thank you. And again, like you say, I saw it on Twitter during Clinical Audit Awareness Week, and what you were doing, you weren't just doing a comms plan for your trust, you were actually part of a national comms week promoting clinical audit, and that influenced and affected other people outside your organisation, and that's about working for one NHS, isn't it? So in terms of, I think you made a really good point around having a comms strategy, because what impact do these posters have? So again, for next time, you know, where did we internalize it in terms of, did we put them up on the poster boards and in coffee rooms and all that sort of thing? So that's the bit around where's the footfall, where can people spot these? And because you've made them eye-catching, it's just actually making sure that they get to an audience, if you like, sort of thing. So yeah, no, great, thank you. So excellent resources in terms of training on YouTube. So like that one, there's another 100 that you can find, and if you've got a particular thing that you want to look at, so someone will spend a whole hour talking about how you manage white space on an infographic, etc. So so again, you can refine your own development by searching on YouTube for videos. So that was so they've got a link for that. In terms of bringing it back to clinical audit, one of the resources that we've previously shared on these sessions is the HQIP compendium of infographics that they do. The success of their annual reports, they're now doing quarterly reports, HQIP are, in terms of all of the national audit reports that have been published in that quarter. They then pull together the key findings from those national audits. And again, so that it's done much more timely than the annual. And again, if you want to know what's happened in terms of the national agenda, then that's the best place to look, because you can see all the key results for all the national audits, you know, in about 10 pages, instead of sifting through what could be over 1,000 pages if you look at all of the reports put together. So that's definitely a good resource, and it's great to see that HQIP have done that now on a quarterly basis. So in terms of best in class, I picked out two that we could potentially critique together, because and also just to see what we think's good about this infographic. So yeah, okay. And then the next one was the National Neonatal Audit Programme, and these again have been using infographics for quite some time as an organisation with their results. This is their latest take, and again, we've got similarities here. We've got sort of what I think they call that the speedo or the dashboard approach, where you've got those sort of pie charts that are circles. So you can see where the compliance is again with that. They've backed it up with the little icons as well to make it a bit more. And as I say, I know we've not massive in number, but thank you for everybody who has attended, and certainly made the effort of putting these things together more worthwhile in terms of hopefully colleagues learning and sharing. And like I say, we've recorded today's session. We'll post the outputs of all the slides if Becky's happy to put her slides up there as well on the forum. and we'll probably do a bit of a poll on the forum about if we ask a trainer to come in, what would you like them to train you in, and we'll carry on sharing and promoting best practice as we are. Okay, anything else to conclude with, Vicky? Is there anything?
I just think that sounds like a great plan, Carl. I think it's like you say, although we might not have lots of numbers attending today, it's now how we share this more widely, isn't it? Post today's network meeting. So yeah, I think it'd be really good, and yeah, that poll would be great.
Okay, great.
Thank you. It's lovely to see you all.
Okay, thanks.
And thanks, Becky.
Right.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye.